Hello and welcome to the Engineers Roundtable. This is Everything DevOps monthly live session where we bring in engineers doing real work, meaningful work, to have the honest conversation our community actually wants. So today we're talking about open source and how contributing to it can give you career leverage.
Um, so our guest for this session is Divine Odazie. Divine Odazie is the founder of Everything DevOps, a CNCF Ambassador, and one of the organizers of. Can you hear me? Hi, Victory. Can you hear me? I just want to confirm that you can hear me. Okay, yes. Sorry for
Yes.
that. So Divine Odazie is the founder of Everything DevOps, a CNCF Ambassador, and one of the organizers behind KCD Nigeria, which is Kubernetes Community Days. He spent years making Kubernetes and cloud native technologies more accessible to engineers across Africa. He's spoken at global conferences and built a community that actually connects local talent to global ecosystem. Today's conversation is going to be both personal and practical.
Okay, so here's how the next 90 minutes is going to roll. This session is going to last for 90 minutes, and here's how it's going to be. We're going to spend 15 minutes in the conversation, and then we'll open it up for you, the audience, to ask your questions. So if you have any questions, please put them down before the end of the session because you get to ask our guest and he will answer directly. We're going to cover where to start, how to pick the right project, how to fit it into a life that already has a full-time job, and whether contributing to open source is even the right move for everyone. So before we engage our guests, let's do a little warm-up. If you've ever contributed to open source, leave an emoji, like drop an emoji in the comment section. Let's see those who already have experience in open source. If you've ever contributed to open source, leave an emoji for us. Let's see you. Okay, that's great. So I'm guessing the rest of us have zero experience with open source, but whichever category you find yourself in, this session will guide you to the next step. All right, Divine, you're welcome. I'm going to be bringing up our guest on stage now. You're welcome, and we're so glad to have you here.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Sorry, there was a bit of a lag with the airport. I say airport. Sorry, maybe I've been flying too much. That's why I'm saying airport. There was a lag in the network. Thank you very much for that warm introduction. Right? And I'm excited to be here to share the little that I do know about like open source, and I'm really looking forward to this. Right, this is the start of something, the engineering roundtable, and the start is most important, right? And being consistent. So we hope to be consistent every month, and hopefully they come a time it will become a weekly something. Am I right, Victoria and Gloria?
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
they want to be there.
All right, we would like to start by knowing a thing or two about your journey into open source. So tell us about your first contribution. What was it? How was it? And what made you contribute?
Okay, so my journey into open source was somewhat unconventional, right? And um,
Okay.
and to be honest, it's just conversations like what we're having now that got me into open source. Me hearing that, like, yeah, if you contribute to open source, it can help in your career. Or yeah, if you contribute to open source, this is the way you can get reward experience, right? So my first contribution to open source, aside, I would say, is me pushing a code to GitHub, right, which is a repository that everyone can see your code. But my first contribution to a project that was not my own, right, was documentation. making a little change, like correcting a spelling in a large documentation. So that is not really like, it doesn't sound like I'm building a system or something like complex and like very exciting, right? Or engineering, right? From that perspective. But that planted the seed, right, which have got me to here. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. That was a great start. So we would like you to walk us through the chain of events, right? From that first contribution to speaking at KubeCon, because you've spoken at KubeCon before. So from that first contribution to speaking at KubeCon, how did it go? Walk us through the line of events.
Yeah. So for those people that don't know, right, KubeCon is a flagship conference for the DevOps world, Kubernetes world, and all, right. So there are several other conferences. Let's say if you're watching this and you do web design, web development, and every or game development, there are several other flagship conferences for that, right? So to answer your question, I actually given a talk on like my CNCF journey. CNCF is the organization that's under the Linux Foundation, right? CNCF Cloud Computing, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So I gave a conference about my journey, a talk about my journey, and I just want to share from that slide, a slide from the talk, right? I can just share that. Let me just share my
Sure.
screen. Just give me one moment to just highlight and answer the question. So if you, I think you should be able to see my entire screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
okay.
can.
I
Yes.
think you can see my screen. Yeah. So this is my before this, right? I've made my first open source contribution. So going from making my open source contribution to speaking at KubeCon, one thing I would say, and this is something that I always say, right? Me making my first contribution, I wouldn't say I was really a beginner, so I have to bring that context out there. But I know so many people that have been beginners, right, or mid level, or even seniors, right, that open source have changed their lives. So back to my story. So I heard about the CNCF in 2022, and I started contributing actively to open source, right, in the cloud native world. And I was on a project on Cilium. If you're in that world, Cilium is a CNI for the Kubernetes world, right? So then I spoke at a conference, right, in Nigeria, KCD Africa, which is a Kubernetes conference, then contributing more to open source, right? Making connection, meeting people. And then one of the people I worked with in the open source community, who is an American, right, and lives in Germany, told me about KubeCon, right, about the conference. And then I applied and I got the scholarship and I attended, right? So you can see like months and years of cumulative effort, but I got from KubeCon, from contributing the open source, the information that skyrocketed my career to being at KubeCon, right? So this is just a high level, and I just wanted to share that. I hope that like answers your question.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you so much. So,
Yeah.
at what point did you know that open source was actually doing something real for your career? Because we are here to look at how open source can be a career strategy, right?
Mm.
So, at what point did you realize that this thing is actually having an impact in my career?
Yes. So let me just share back that same screen, right? So to be honest, if anyone speaking at a conference, like I'm Nigerian, so traveling outside Nigeria to speak at a conference, it shows that like you have started like achieving something in your career, right? But before then, what I saw that was pivotal was when I told people that I've worked on this project, even in that conference, and was it before I traveled and all, right, in interviews, because I was looking for a new job, as at that time. I was laid off my previous role, so there was a different, the conversations was different, right? Because this is not like a Cilium, for example, the open source project I contributed. It is not like it was not a personal project, and this project used by millions of companies, used by AWS, used by large organizations and all that. So that was very, very important, right? That was that was when I knew that this would be my way, right, to advance my career, and this is a way to like build right for the future because of that like experience, exposure, and perspective it gives to me. So starting from my contribution to Cilium, and then I contributed to Ansible, which is a big project, right? Anyone watching this now or later in the future must know Ansible, right, and all that. So yeah.
All right, so I'll be asking the next question.
Mhm.
I want to know how do you evaluate the projects that you invest your time in? Because I like to believe that there are
Mm.
quite a couple of projects out there. So what's the process? What's that process for you like? Because a lot of people would want to, a lot of people may want to contribute to open source, right? But they may not know how
Yeah.
to go about it. So how exactly do you like what's the process for you in evaluating a project to contribute to?
Yeah. So I still sharing my screen. So I like to make my talks very practical. So let me just
Okay.
go to something. So the first step, let me go to GitHub, right, which is like um the most widely used what do they call it, version control, right, and code repository hosting platform. So the first step, right, is making is trying to understand the project and if it aligns with your goals. You know, you want to contribute to open source to get to the next level of your career. You want to contribute to
Yeah.
open source to learn how to build better projects better. You want to contribute to open source to network with people. So I would look at this from two different spectrums, right? So if you're an absolute beginner, right? You're an absolute beginner. I would say go and first of all look for a project that aligns first with a with what you're learning. Right. Let's say I'm an absolute beginner and I'm learning Python. So I can
Okay.
come here, right, and search how do they spell Python? Okay, I think I spelled it well. And search Python,
Yeah.
right? See hundreds of projects around that, right? So now that may be chaotic to like, oh, you're seeing hundreds of projects and all that. Where would you start from
Mhm.
that? So now in the cloud native world, right, in the space that I'm in, and I believe most of our audience, everything DevOps are in the cloud native and DevOps world. So there's a tool called Contributor that the CNCF created that helps you search repositories, projects, and all that. So now as an absolute beginner and even an expert, right, I want to do something as a beginner I'm interested in, or as an experienced person I have experience in, right? So as a beginner, right, that's just getting started in the world of cloud native and DevOps and all that, I can search this Python here because GitHub has millions and millions of projects, so it's kind of chaotic. So now the CNCF have created this contributor for you to be able to, I will share the links in the chat, for you to be able to sieve through projects, right? CNCF projects. Then I can come here, I can see good projects, right, that have good first issues. So good first issues in the world of open source basically means like this is a project that is good for a beginner to get started contributing it. And now you can also see this filter here, which is not really in GitHub, right, that we showed here. You have to filter out difficulty of like project. So I can then search through here and go, okay, the easy, right? Then I can say, oh, these are easy fe- features that I can contribute to that are easy and I can get
Yeah.
started with and all that, right? So that is a way like to like get started, right? And I can go more into this, right? I don't know. I see we have some time. So when you select this, right? Let's say you select this from this open AI image, right? Open image IO, and you go to the project, then you let me go back to where I was. Yeah, you go to the project, you can open the particular repository. There's one thing that a lot of people don't do when they want to get started with open source, right? Is that most times they try to get started on their own. If you're
Yeah.
meeting a new project, you don't really, yeah, you're meeting a new project, you don't really know, you don't really know everything about the project, right? You don't really know, just give me a second. So you don't really know about the project, right? So just going to come on your own. Yes, you can ask AI and Claude and stuff to get started. Well, the best way to get started is just like this guy, right? Just like this guy mentioned, this is a contributor. You can just say, hey, the person that created that particular repository or issue, hey, the person's name, right? Let me zoom in more. So I don't know if you can see what I'm typing very well. Let me
Yeah,
zoom
I
in more.
can.
Yeah. Hey, the person's name. I would like to work on this project, on this issue.
Yeah.
I am a beginner, right? I am a beginner contributor. You get explain yourself, right? And most people are very, very open to help you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they'll give you feedback, guide you through that contribution. This is how I made my contribution, my first contribution. This is how I contributed to Cilium. This is how I've been contributing to most projects, especially when I don't know the project from the onset, right? And then there are other projects. Let's say you find something on GitHub randomly and it was very interesting. You can go through that same route, even on like some specific projects. For example, let's click on this project. They have pull requests and issues. You can go there. This same tag that you saw on the contributor, right? Some of these projects
Yeah.
have it, right? So some of these projects have the easy tag, the difficult tag, and all that, and you can see through that. But if there's anything that I want to leave you, right,
Mm-hmm.
for how to get started is ask questions, right?
Yeah.
Ask the contributor. A lot of all these projects have Slack channels. So try to get to their Slack channel. Try to engage in people that created the issue on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and all that, because it's easier than trying to figure it out on your own, and they can help you. And now, when you get started in a project and you reach to the end and your contribution is merged to the core project, they now know about you. You build a relationship, you build a connection,
Yeah.
and all that. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It does. That was really, really helpful. Thank you so much. It really answered the question because um, sometimes when you're starting things out on your own, you really don't know where to start from. So
Yeah.
this is like a really good breakdown and walkthrough of what to do, how to go about it. For a lot of people on here that are looking to, going to open source. Thank you so much. And my next question would be that so many engineers tend to feel like they need to be senior before they can contribute. What's your take on that?
Hmm. So, so being senior, right, is relative. Let me start with
Okay.
that because you can be senior in a company in a startup, and then you can be a junior in like a big firm, right? So that's
Yeah, true.
exactly. So that's relative. So, I would say you don't need to know everything, just like I went through the step by step. It's all about like being able to ask the right questions, right? And
Yeah,
there you have AI. You can ask AI questions, but in most cases, asking a fellow human being, especially the project maintainers, every project has maintainer, right? Every project has a community. So asking them questions will help you. So
yeah,
you don't really need to be a senior, but you need to be able to ask the right questions. That is how that would be my advice. So experience, you you can be a senior. For example, there are some projects that I want to contribute in. I have experience writing code, but I don't understand that project. So that's why I say
okay.
senior is relative, right? I can't write C++ to save my life, right? But I can write Java, I can write it. So you get it all
Yeah,
depends on like the context and all. So asking question is the most important thing. It's not about like your tag, your level of experience or years of the experience and all that. So
true.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Um, what would you say is the biggest mistake you've seen engineers make when they finally start contributing?
Biggest mistake when they finally, I would say stopping. I know that's not that's not like the answer everyone would expect, right? But I would
Yes,
say the
yes.
biggest mistake is stopping because like with everything consistency, and then for example in projects like when you just contribute one and then you stop and all, yeah, people would know, people like it's hard to build relationships, it's hard to understand the project when you're just like, let's say, hopping from one project to the other, or you started a project, you stop, then in 2 years later you want to start contributing to open source again, you start on a different project and all,
True.
right? I would say that that's the biggest mistake, right? And another mistake I would say is feeling that like there's no value. You know, or contributing to open source in most cases is mostly geared towards beginners, right? Beginners should contribute, really beginners. But then again, like the projects are like senior engineers that use the project, they make decisions. Beginners cannot build the most complex thing, right? So there is a lot of projects, a lot of issues, like, and there's a lot of open source projects that need expert experienced contributors, right?
Mhm.
So one, stopping after starting; two, feeling like there's no like project to contribute, there's no need to like contribute. Right? I know.
Yeah, that's such a very profound answer. Because honestly, I didn't expect it. I thought you were going to say something else, but I didn't expect you saying stopping. And it's true because it's good for you to build consistency in whatever you're doing. You don't just stop.
Yeah.
Very, very solid answer. I'm taking notes definitely. Thank you so much.
Mhm. You're
Yeah, thank you
welcome.
so much for that. Right. So on the part of starting and stopping, we've actually seen engineers who maybe they started, they got their PR rejected, and then they never went back. So what would you say to such an engineer who tried once or twice and their PR keeps getting rejected and they just gave up on it?
Yeah, so is so sad, right? Especially when you like spend time working on something and you feel it's good. And I think like it happens everywhere. So I would say, first of all, my first advice would be try to think about it from a perspective of, if you're in a job, right, and you do something, and your boss or your manager or your team member say this is not good, they reject it. In most cases, especially in open source, right, people will give you feedback. Sometimes it may be like negative feedback, not constructed well, because like you don't know what someone is going through that day. The person that gave you the feedback, you don't know what they are going through that day. It may not be constructed well, right? It may be
Yeah.
like harsh feedback, because we see that a lot in open source and generally even in work environment, someone being rude to you and all. So now, if it's hard feedback or someone being too rude to you, yeah, that was one. But in most cases, that hard feedback or someone being rude may come with like some tips and all. Then on the other spectrum, if it's like good feedback, constructive feedback, and all, it's an opportunity to learn, because you don't know everything, right? And like it's an opportunity to learn one or thing or two. There are several of my PROs I've created. Like if your PROs are getting rejected, it getting accepted in the first, like when you open them, right, at the first trial, that means you're not tackling projects that are helping you learn or helping you grow. That's how we see it. So if you're going to you're making PRs to issues or to stuff that, like immediately it gets accepted, right? So frequently. I'm not saying that you should only work on the hardest problem, but so frequently, then you're not tackling the hardest possible challenges. Then you're not seeing room to go. You're not going out of your comfort zone. Because when someone give you feedback, whether your codes, whether your way you wrote the documentation, whether the way you structure the feedback, right? The way you structure the repo, or whether the unit test you wrote for this, that, and that, whatever it may be, is an opportunity to learn how to do something, right? For example,
Yeah.
I can say like me building a company now, whatever I do now is based on so many little experiences from so many things, right? I help, and you make it like you can now fine tune and all, right? So every rejection, every no, every negative feedback, right? I believe I pray they will construct it well, not being rude, right? It's an opportunity to learn and improve and grow. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much. And this is to every engineer out there who has tried to contribute to open source. If it gets
Yeah.
rejected or it has gotten rejected before, take it as a feedback, right?
Mm.
Don't give up, don't drop it and be like, I'm no more doing this. No, go back, look at what could have been the mistakes. And you could also pass it around fellow engineers, right, who have also contributed before. Oh, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
contributed this and it's got rejected. What do you think could have been the issue? What can I change? What can I twist? What can I add? Or what can I take out? And you can come back in and get successful from there. So, Divine, you've been deeply involved in the cloud native community in Africa, right? That's
Mm.
KCD Nigeria to be
Yeah.
specific. You've been building community,
Yeah.
you've been speaking. So, how has open source specifically shaped what's possible for engineers here in Africa through KCD? How has open source shaped this?
So can you like rephrase your question? So like you said, how has open source? Can you rephrase your question? Sorry, I didn't get it.
Okay, you've been deeply involved in cloud native community in Africa, specifically KCD Nigeria, right? You've been building
Yeah,
community, you've been speaking, and I think I saw KCD Nigeria coming up this 2026 in October, right? So how
yeah,
has open
yeah.
source shaped what's possible for engineers here in Africa?
Okay, that yes. So that's a good question, right? Because open source as if you talk to let's say 1,000 engineers, right, in Africa that have like let's say they're working for remote companies or they say they've achieved some level of success. The way I'm putting the quote is because success is relative, right? No,
Yeah.
they have achieved some level of success or they can mentor others in one thing or two because everyone at some point in their style life can mentor others, right? I would say ask them, okay, how did you get started? I can bet you that 80% of them will say open source.
Yeah.
80%, especially people that started their career in the last 10 years, right? That started their career in the last like 10 years, right? Some people that started 20 years ago, obviously, may have been some other route, and or maybe they went to school or something, I don't know. But people that started their career in the last 10, 12 years, most of them have been like open source, right? And it's more prevalent in recent career people. And like just while talking about that, I can share my screen more because there are a lot of open source programs, right? If you remember when I shared my screen, I talked about me contributing to KCD, me contributing to GSOD, right, at Cilium,
Yeah.
for Cilium, working on GSOD. So GSOD is Google Season of Docs. Sadly, that program is now dysfunctional, right? It's now discontinued rather, not dysfunction, sadly. But there are several programs like that, right? And I can just put the screen. There are over 60 open source programs. So if you're here watching this now or in the future, you can scan this. If this doesn't work, please let me know. Scan and test it now to make sure it works because this slide is a bit like old, right? I didn't know I'll be talking about this. So this there are over several programs. I'm a beneficiary of one of the programs, just like this one I mentioned, right? That helped me get the experience, get the knowledge to meet the person that told me to apply for KCD, that helped me review my talks, that told me to get applied to KubeCon, and I got into KubeCon and all right. So these programs are a lot of people I know. I can call 100 people that I know that have gone through these programs, right? That I still know till today. So scan, there are over 60 open source programs. There's Google Summer of Code that has already started for this year. There's Google Season of Docs. Sadly, it has been discontinued. There's MLH fellowship, the CNCF, the LFX mentorship program. There are several programs, right? And all. So this has been like a pathway for a lot of people to get started. So scan this code or Google or like ask your questions in the chats and all. Right? But yeah, this is how a lot of people like have grown and me and several other people that I know. All this answers your question.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you so much. It really does. Okay, so how do you balance contributing to open source with a full-time job? Yeah, you mentioned that you quit your job actually, but I believe you were working even when you started this, right? So how does an engineer who has a full-time job balance contributing to open source consistently with life and
Mm,
everything else?
yeah. So I think my first advice I would say don't do anything that burns you out because once you burn out, like there's no benefit to anyone, right? So for me, like I said, before I started while having a job, right? I became more active after I got a job. After I was laid off of the job. I got another job, right? My contribution was, in all honesty, I wouldn't come and tell someone that I was still contributing 40 hours per week when I had a foot on. I'll be lying, right? So I'm that kind of person I'll tell you the truth. But what I did was I was always involved in the community. So contributing to open source, right? Most times people feel like it's just all about writing code. It's not all about code. Now most people are more informed now that documentation is also involved. I will also say
Yeah.
it's not all about documentation. People know now that designing and all this is involved. It's not all about that. Being just attending a conference, being involved in conversations, telling someone about open source, telling somebody about this is actually contributing to open source. Going places, like making a LinkedIn post about an opportunity, like contributing to open source. The idea of open source is free, right, and it's open. So once you're doing anything related to the tech ecosystem that is free and that's open, that you're contributing to the open source. It must not be code, it must not be on GitHub, it must not be on GitLab or the likes, right? And all that. So managing it, when I had a full-time job and managing it, I was mostly involved in community initiative. I was not, let's say, committing code every time, but I was being involved in community initiative, right? But that's because also my job, right, was aligned more towards community initiative and all. But some people, their job is always is full-time, fully on code and all. So if you can commit, right, most times I try to approach things and what is the end goal. If contributing to open source is for the love of it, then if you love something, you still keep contributing to it, just keep doing it. If it's for a long-term goal to like improve your learning, then you want to improve your learning, you keep like using it to improve your learning on a particular tool. Let's say you're trying to learn, trying to learn like Rust, right, programming language, and you've been contributing to Rust project. So whatever started you in that contributing, right, to open source, think about it from a long-term perspective on how it will be to support you to continue to grow, right? And if you approach it from the long-term perspective, it's much easier to be consistent, right? Even if it's one PR per month, it's still something, right? But then again, if you see that you're getting burned out, it's okay to stop, because like if anything happens, no one is coming to like save you literally, right?
Yeah.
So you can't. Yeah, a lot of maintainers that I know that had to take some time off, had to quit on some project, and that is good
No.
because health is wealth, right? And all. So
True. Very true.
All right. Thank you so much. Oh, but this was practical. This was good. Now, the final question we have here for you is, before we go into the final question, please, if you're watching and you have a question for our guests, please prepare your questions. Start dropping them in the comment section because we'll be going into Q&A very soon so that we can answer your question live and direct. So, our guest, if you could give every DevOps engineer in our community, because we are a community of engineers, of DevOps engineers, we are everything DevOps. So, if you could give every engineer in our community one piece of advice about open source contribution, what would it be?
hmm. So one piece of advice I would one piece of advice. I like talking too much now. I've seen one piece now, so give me time, let me think.
Oh.
So
Okay.
one piece of advice, one piece of advice I would say, right, to anyone contributing to open source is be consistent, right? Be consistent, because it's a long-term game. Some people, just for example, right, I can give this scenario. You notice that some people come on LinkedIn only when they are looking for a job. Then the next time they'll
True.
come on LinkedIn
Yeah.
looking for the next job. You get that kind of stuff. So open source is like that. Some people come to open source when they are looking to get a job, or when they are looking to like do something, like they have like an end goal and all. But the best value you can get is in the long term. And now this saying this from experience. If I just like, oh, when I was doing all this project, yeah, I was out of a job and I was more this. If I just like stop contributing to the community and all, like especially in tech now that we know that no job is permanent. Rarely do you see permanent jobs and all those kind of things. So like when I mean permanent, I'll say I mean long term. I have 5 years, 6 years span. So be consistent, because you don't only build, like you don't only get the technical value, you can also get the financial value, you can also get the relationship value. You meet people that have shared goals. The people I'm building everything DevOps with now, like Jibril, Prince, I met them through open source, right, years ago. You don't know who you meet. Some people have met their partners, right, their wives and their husbands, right, through like open source and all that. So you don't know what you meet and all. Your destiny helper is there too, right? I know I'm talking like a Nigerian destiny helper. For those that don't understand, destiny helper just like someone that will help you to get to your goal, right, and your
Very
dreams and all.
so.
Yeah, so be consistent, because And another thing I've come to see is that people are seeing you, right? If you start stuff,
True.
show up in 2 years and all, everyone is seeing you, and like you want to be that person that someone you have a track record of doing stuff. For now, like I want to say something that may sound weird or cliche is that now I can take a break from open source. I can take a 3 years break, and I'll come back and people will still
Mm,
recognize like my work and who I am. That's because I've been doing it for so long. So that's how you
yeah.
should think about it. You're not saying that you should do it forever or you should do it for like 20 years, so right, and all that. So you do it long enough to be able to like get value from it, impact value to others. Just like that, I'm taking out my time now to do this, right? And it will keep speaking for you like in years and years to come, so long as you're still in tech. Whether you leave tech and you want to go into farming, for example, who are the beneficiaries of farming? It's still human beings. The human beings can be working in tech too. So you don't know how like you get. I'm trying to paint a picture
Yeah.
of something like weird. For example, you want to
Yeah.
sell farm produce. I say, I used to write code that time before AI took over. We are all farmers now. Let's do business. I hope AI doesn't take over. So we have some questions in the chat. I think.
All right. All right. Let's get to that. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to read the questions. Okay, Jubin is asking, what are your thoughts on maintainers that are not open to AI assisted contribution? That's a very interesting question,
Uh,
given the rise of AI and everything.
yeah, so that's a very good question, right? And I will say like they are the maintainers, they know why. So like whatever anyone's opinion would be, they are the maintainers, they are the one that have been building the project. And I would believe it would be a project that has been existing before AI. They know what they have
Yeah.
seen. Maybe they've tried to build and contribute with AI and they've seen the flaws and all, right? They know why. But then again, they are the ones that will approve, right? So my thoughts would be that like maybe you find a project, if now you want to contribute to a project and you want to use it AI, maybe you find a project that is not that accepts AI, right? But when from a beginner's, okay, let me also look at this from two spectrum. If you're a beginner or someone early in your career trying to get that, I would say to try to do things more by yourself, not especially in open source, not because like, oh, you want to say you did it by yourself, but from an understanding perspective, right? Especially if you're doing things that deal with the fundamentals, or you can help yourself move faster in some certain things with AI and all. But try to do things yourself to understand fundamentals of how things work, right? Because like we've seen in several research, if you use AI a lot, that skill and just like for example, imagine someone giving you textbooks to go and look for a word in dictionary. We have been using Google for years, right? So you get so that skill like is not. But the core thing about like software now, right, is that a lot of these fundamentals, like I don't know if someone watching this now saw my post on networking. A lot of these fundamentals is what AI is built upon, right? So yeah, so it raises the bar of entry. So you have to be better and also lean on to what the projects like owner, project maintainer, like says, right? Yeah.
Okay, I think you already answered Jibril's follow-up question if it
Mm, yeah.
does raise the bar to entry. Yeah, so next question is from Prince. It says, aside from the joy of giving back, what other benefits are there in contributing to open source?
Yeah. So like aside from just like I mentioned, right? I think I mentioned these financial benefits, right? I got to my next job because of contributing to open source. Some of these open source
Okay.
programs that I have here, right? You can scan. A lot of them are paid thousands of dollars, right? And like thousands of dollars is great money wherever you are in the world, right? So there's a lot of financial benefits. There's also network benefits, right? But I mean network like connections, community and all, right? So those are some benefits that are there to open source. So the fulfillment, the connections, the financial benefits, and also uh, I would say the learning, right? When you
Yeah.
learn how people work, when you learn more about like a certain project and all that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have a comment from Victor Akande here. He said we are welcoming open source at Open Gas, and there's a link to it there. So I believe he's calling for contributions to something he's building, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
something
So
engineers can contribute to. All
yeah,
right. Okay. So before we leave, we we see you are organizing. You're part of the organizers for KCD Nigeria, right? Is this
yeah,
like an event you would advise engineers to attend? Like, tell us about it.
yeah. So KCD Nigeria, KCD is a Kubernetes Community Days. It's a, will I say, is a community conference, right? Or that is more focused on DevOps and cloud native world that happens all over the world in several cities, countries, and states all over the world. So KCD Nigeria, KCD stands for Kubernetes Community Days. So I can just pull up the link, right? You can share. I think I'm still sharing my screen. You can share my screen. So you can just pull up the link. So this is KCD Nigeria, right? So like I mentioned, Kubernetes Community Days. So bringing all people working for anything related to containers, Kubernetes, cloud native, DevOps, and all. That's been happening for years now. This will be our second in-person conference, and our theme for this conference is telling the African cloud native story and all. So our call for speakers is still open. So if you're African, whether you're in Africa or like you're in Nigeria or wherever you are, even though you're not African, we welcome international speakers like we had last year. So you can apply to speak. I can also send this link to the chat to the comments. I would share it with you, the organizers, to send to the comments. So you can apply to speak and all that. So it's an interesting conference, right? A lot happen all over the world, like you can see in several cities all over the world. And it's a day to connect, learn, right? Just like this, talk about open source, talk about the community, and build relationships and all that. Right. So yeah,
All
happening
right.
on
Thank you.
October
So,
24th. October
Oh,
24th.
yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that it's October 24th. So yeah.
Okay. Noted. We'll share the link um as soon as possible. All right. That's a wrap on the engineers roundtable. It was so good having, it was so great having this maiden
yeah.
edition of the roundtable where we talked about open source, how you can contribute, and it was very, very practical. Our guest was very practical in his explanation, in answering his questions, sharing his slides, showing us how to find contribution and all of that. And we also have a comment from Victor Akonde saying he's welcoming contributions. So you can check in as soon as possible. If you are looking to contribute to something, you can get started from, you know, with Victor's project. So thank you so much, Divine. Thank you for bringing all of that. We appreciate it. And to
No
everyone
problem.
watching, you're welcome. If this conversation was useful, please share it, tag an engineer who needs to hear it, and follow Divine on LinkedIn and follow Everything DevOps as well for more. So we'll have the recording up shortly and we'll be sharing clips and snippets from this. See you at the next roundtable. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.